The man was standing on our doorstep holding a clipboard, and he had the flat, patient expression of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. It was a Tuesday. The 4th of March, 2021. We had been living together for exactly 31 days. I remember thinking he looked almost apologetic as he asked for Daniel Hartley by full name, both names together, the way people say it when they have it written down in front of them. I told him Daniel wasn't home from work yet. He said he'd wait. And I let him, because I had no idea, not even the faintest edge of an idea, that what Daniel owed was not just to this man's company. What I wouldn't discover until later was that there were 5 others. 5 other companies. 5 other sets of letters that had been quietly, carefully redirected away from every place I had ever been able to look. Daniel and I had been together since October 2017. 3 years and 4 months of what I genuinely believed was a straightforward, honest life. We met through mutual friends at a birthday dinner in Manchester, Sarah Connolly's 30th, a restaurant on Deansgate that charged too much for the pasta. He was funny. Calm. He had this way of making everything feel considered, like he'd already thought about it twice before he spoke. I trusted that quality in him before I trusted almost anything else. I should write that down somewhere permanent. I trusted his calmness before I knew him. That detail matters more now than I have the words to explain. The early years were normal in all the ways that make you stop noticing things. He always paid in cash at restaurants, but lots of people do. He'd change the subject when money came up in group conversations, but so would I. It felt polite, not evasive. He never had a credit card out when we were together. I assumed he preferred debit. I assumed a lot of things, I know that now, but every single assumption felt reasonable at the time, which is the part that keeps me up at 2 a.m. even now. In January 2020 I moved from Leeds to Manchester properly, gave up my flat on Brudenell Road, and we spent the next year saving to rent somewhere together. He contributed every month, £250 into a joint savings account I had set up. Never missed a payment. I saw that as proof of something. Proof of intention. Proof of honesty. That account became the thing I pointed to in my own head whenever anything felt slightly off. Look, I'd tell myself. He shows up. He contributes. He's here. We found the flat in Chorlton in January 2021. Ground floor, 2 bedrooms, a small garden neither of us had any real plan for. The landlord was a quiet man named Graham who shook Daniel's hand too firmly and told us we'd love the area. The rent was £1,150 a month. We split it down the middle. I signed the tenancy agreement on a Wednesday afternoon while Daniel was at work and I felt genuinely, uncomplicated happy. The kind of happy that doesn't have a footnote. We moved in on the 1st of February. Boxes, flat pack shelving from IKEA on the Ashton New Road, a housewarming bottle of Prosecco we drank sitting on the floor because the sofa wasn't built yet. His mum called to congratulate us. My sister sent flowers. Everything was exactly what it was supposed to look like. I have a photo from that night on my phone. I have not been able to look at it for 2 years. The letters started arriving in the second week. I didn't think much of the first one. It was addressed to Daniel, looked official. He opened it in the kitchen while I was making tea and said it was something to do with an old bank account, something administrative, nothing to worry about. He put it in a drawer in the hallway. I watched him do it and I accepted that explanation with both hands, because why wouldn't I? 3 years. 3 years of reasons to believe him. There were 4 more letters before the man with the clipboard arrived. I know that now. I didn't know it then because Daniel collected the post every morning before I was properly awake. He had started waking up earlier since we moved in. I thought he was being considerate, trying not to disturb me. I thought he was being kind. And then I found out. The man at the door, his name was Phil, he eventually told me, Phil from Cabot Financial. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't even particularly formal. When Daniel pulled up in his car at 6:30 and saw him standing in our small front garden, he went the color of old paper. I watched it happen from the window. I watched my partner's face fall through the floor, and I still didn't fully understand what I was seeing. Phil said the account was 18 months in arrears. £14,200. Daniel said they'd been in contact. That it was being sorted. Phil said the previous address had been unresponsive and this was a formal notice of intent. I closed the front door behind me and stood on the path in my socks, and I asked Daniel what was happening. He said it was one account. An old one. A mistake he'd been managing. I believed him for approximately 4 hours. Until I went into the hallway drawer. 6 letters. 6 different companies. Cabot Financial. Lowell Portfolio. Link Financial. 3 others. The amounts were written in red at the top of each one. The way that means they have already asked nicely and they are not asking nicely anymore. I sat on the hallway floor and I added them up on my phone calculator. I added them up twice because the first number looked wrong. £91,400. Accumulated across 7 credit cards and 3 personal loans. The oldest account opened in 2013. He had been carrying this for 8 years. He had been carrying it across our entire relationship, across every holiday and birthday and future conversation, across the joint savings account, across the lease with my name on it, across every moment I had pointed to as proof. I called him into the hallway. I didn't shout. I'm telling you that not because it makes me sound good, but because I want to be accurate. I was too far past shouting. I was in a different place entirely. I was in the cold, quiet country on the other side of it. He sat on the bottom stair. I sat on the floor with the letters spread around me. I asked him to tell me everything, and for a long moment he just looked at his hands. He said it started in 2013 with one card. A balance transfer offer he'd used to cover a shortfall after being made redundant. Then another card to manage the first. Then a loan to consolidate it all, which he'd then spent down again within 18 months without touching the original debt. He said there had been a period, around 2016, where he almost had it under control. I thought about 2016. I thought about where I was in 2016. I was not yet in his life. I thought about what it means that he met me while already buried and chose to keep digging instead of telling me. I asked him why. Not how. I could follow the how. I could see the mechanical logic of it, one bad decision building a floor for the next one. I asked him why he hadn't told me. At any point. At any of the 10,000 ordinary moments across 3 years where he could have sat down across from me and said, "There is something you need to know." He said he was ashamed. He said he kept thinking he'd fix it before it became my problem. He said he loved me and that I had to know that was still true. I looked at him for a long time. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him look. Not in a satisfying way. In a sad way. In the way that makes everything more complicated than you want it to be. I told him that shame was not a reason to lie for 3 years. I told him that I had signed a lease. I told him that my name was on a legal document attached to an address that debt collectors now knew by heart. I told him that love is not a thing you can use to cover a deficit you created by treating someone's trust like a resource. He didn't argue. He just said he was sorry. Over and over, quietly, like a thing that had run out of other things to say. I stayed that night. I don't know why. I stayed the next night too. By the end of the first week I had spoken to a debt charity helpline, confirmed that my own credit was not yet affected, and begun the process of understanding exactly what leaving would involve given my name on the lease. I was out by the end of April. 2 months after we moved in. I left the flat and I left him and I left the small garden and the IKEA shelving and the photo on my phone of us sitting on the floor with the Prosecco. I think about the drawer sometimes. The hallway drawer where he put the first letter while I made tea. I think about the fact that he chose that drawer specifically because it was the one I never opened. He knew which drawer I never opened. That's how well he knew me. That's how long he had been paying attention to what I did and didn't notice, and redirecting everything dangerous into the gap. You don't just hide £90,000. You hide it inside a person's trust, and that is where it does the most damage.